Good afternoon, everyone. It's always a huge pleasure to come to Lancaster, but particularly, obviously, Morecambe. I'm always really conscious when I talk in Lancaster that there's a whole world out there, and particularly I'm speaking now to friends and people who are down on that seafront. My day this morning started really weirdly when I got in a cab at 8:30 at the train station. It said, "Take me to the brewery." It's not something I normally say, but it was brought into sharp focus because last night I was actually in Beijing, and before that I was in Qingdao in the morning. The only reason I say that is because it shows that we're working as Eden Project International on global projects. You are now part of a global project. The interesting thing as well about Qingdao is a coastal community. When I was chatting to the people in Qingdao yesterday that I was coming here, they said, we share a lot with Morecambe. Just think about that for a moment. You never thought that would happen. Two coastal communities, two communities of people wanting something better, two communities that are looking to the future. And so what I'm going to say this afternoon hopefully will resonate. And again, it just reinforces from the start that for us, this has never been about Eden Project North being a local project. Clearly it is because of the connections, but it's about seeing this on a global scale and looking, again, reflecting on yesterday with the climate emergency, with people taking climate action, about how Morecambe can find its place in everything else that's going on in the world right now. It's never been a better time to have this project, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to talk to you this afternoon about it. Now, some of you heard me speak before about Eden Project North and Morecambe in particular. So I'm going to go back to the beginning if I can, just to talk about a few things. But I think before I do that, I'd just like to pick up on a couple of things of what we've done and what's happened already. And it's really remiss of me to, every time I drive into Morecambe now and I see the Eden Project Learning sign at Morecambe College. Can I just take a show of hands of who's seen that sign? Yeah. That's the first statement of long before an Eden Project comes. The education, we're an education charity first and foremost, and education is a wonderful part of what we try to do. So massive thanks to Wes Johnson and the wonderful team at Morecambe College, who've quite frankly helped this to take it and live from this moment. And Professor Rob Barrett who is particularly suffering a bit of an illness at the moment, so we wish Rob could be with us and wishing him well. But again, the reason I mention that is Eden Project isn't something that's happening as a building in a few years' time. Eden Project is an attitude, it's a way of looking at life, it's a provocation, and particularly as an education charity, we're really thrilled that so many new students have decided to take up the new Eden offer as part of Eden Project Learning, which is a 25-year strategy working to transform the education offer with all the education partners in this region. We're absolutely thrilled that that is now happening. That's not talk, that is now happening. The second thing we've done as well of things that have happened, clearly people are aware that we're engaging with government to try and get the funding to sort this project. And again, that is now happening. We've engaged with Jake Berry, we've engaged with the Northern Powerhouse Ministers, we've engaged with the NP11. So we're really keen to make sure the financial aspects of this project have happened and are continuing to grow. So we're pleased that that's now done. And also something fun. So you may or may not be aware that we started a small community project of public art, working with the artistic community, and we sent out an open call for public art, and I'd like to announce our three first elements of public art that are going to be coming forward. The first one we've got is going to be called Warmth, and that's by a wonderful artist, I'm just checking now, which is Bethany Wells, and that's going to be, wait for it, a sauna in a horse box. And we're going to take that out on the road, and we want people to seek the warmth in that place and have some wonderful conversations. So that's going to come to Morecambe in the local area in the next 3 to 4 months. We've also got Daniel Bai is doing a wonderful inspiration through music and walking actually, where we're going to create a community choir with an inspiration called These Hills Are Ours. And that's going to be starting as well in the next couple of months. So they'll be recruiting any budding people who wish to express themselves through song. Look out for Daniel. And finally, Rebecca Burns is doing some artistic interpretation with some shop fronts starting in the West End. So there's some exciting things happening. The reason I say all of that is because sometimes you may feel that we get up on our stage and we talk about things we're going to do, we talk about things we'd like to do. There's stuff that's already happening, and we're really committed to Morecambe and really committed to this project more than ever before. So I said I'd talk about why Morecambe, and I was chatting to somebody else this morning, I said, well, why not? For us, it's the most natural thing in the world. Morecambe is incredible. This place is absolutely incredible. And every time I come to Morecambe, even on the 10th of August, when I was there meeting people for the carnival, and I was getting blown sideways with what little hair or grey hair I've got and feeling, am I going to hang on? Do you know what? It's a remarkable place. You can't help but feel connected to the bay, and you look out from that promenade, and when in the day you can see it, and there's plenty of those, and you see the Lake District across the beautiful sands and the mirrored water. It's an incredible place. And of course, many people here know that, but we want more people to know it, because Morecambe is just stunning. Why else? Why else should it be Morecambe? Well, when you look out at the bay happens also to be a Ramsar site of international significance. It also happens to be a site of special scientific interest. It has multiple other designations. I'm sure there's lots of specialists in this room who can to really testify just how important Morecambe Bay is. But the intertidal kind of region that just has the most wonderful ecosystems to be explored, the overwintering birds that are particularly unique, the list goes on. It's another reason why we love Morecambe so much, because the ecosystems, the wildlife, the sense of connection with nature is just remarkable. Why wouldn't you love that? And then there's some more stuff, which is, why wouldn't you come to a place to try and deliver the mission-driven, the purposeful-driven stuff that we wish to do with the community we're working with, when there's 10.6 million people within 2 hours of the site? Let's just think about that for a moment. In Cornwall, there's 1.6 million people within our site in Cornwall. So the scale of reach with Eden Project North in Morecambe is on a different level to anything we've done before. And that's another great reason. But I think the final one is to seek inspiration from history. And that is, Morecambe was always a place that had a wonderful DNA. It had a wonderful sense of what it represented to itself back in the 19th century. It was a place that inspired people to be a bit of the posh Blackpool. I don't know if I should say that, but it inspired people to where they were working, they'd leave that industrial time, that heavy work that was of that period, and come to Morecambe to refresh, to unwind, to spend time with their families, to do things that are exciting, to do entertainment, and to really connect with a place that they could leave their working life behind just for a moment. That was Morecambe in its heyday, and people came in their droves. And when you look at the platform, and I'm often reminded of the 11 railway lines or 12 that came to the platform, you think, my God, Morecambe, that was amazing. But then life changed, and we knew life changed, and there's lots of reasons why it changed. But that's not Morecambe finished and done, and that's the other reason why we love Morecambe, because Morecambe has a motto that simply says, beauty surrounds and health abounds. It talks about a place that is naturally incredibly beautiful, whatever time of year that may be. It's been beautiful in the past, and it's beautiful now, and it will be even more beautiful in the future. But it's also a place around health. Back in the past, people didn't talk about well-being. It was simply health, feeling healthy or not being healthy. But health and well-being has never, ever been so important in our society. That's about healthy minds, healthy bodies, healthy planet. So all of this is interconnected, and Morecambe sits right in the middle of it. So when people say, why Morecambe? That's why we say, why not? Because everything we'd ever wish to be inspired by a place is here. And it's not just here in a little bit, it's here in huge amounts and huge numbers that we can really work from. The final reason really why Morecambe is because we always love to work in a place where a transformation is possible. And Cornwall in the early, in 1999-2000 was a place of transformation. Can I take a show of hands who's been to Eden Project in Cornwall? Great, that's a good number. And the transformation there, for those who've seen it, was a industrial transformation of a clay pit that had ended its natural life. And Tim, in his brilliance, was able to go to the top of that pit with other people and say, yeah, we're going to build some biomes here. He didn't know that at the time, and all the history that's come from that. It was simply about making a connection between a rainforest, the importance of plants and people, and feeling that the best way to tell that story was to create the biggest rainforest in captivity. You often think that, of course. And then making sure we bring amazing people together to feel that something is possible. And that's what the project represented. It was a response also to that time. Well, Morecambe needs a different response. And the response for Morecambe is all around health, well-being. it's around the entertainment of the seaside resort. And that's why when we talk about the transformation of Morecambe, it's about reimagining a 21st century seaside resort. But we always like to work in places that can be transformed. And so for us, the fundamental parts of that are about having the transformation of the environment. Now, we did that in Cornwall by transforming a derelict clay pit into the largest rainforest in captivity. And for Morecambe, our aspiration, our vision for Morecambe is to transform the environment, not to recreate something that needs to be there because Morecambe is already marvellous. It's to transform people's perception around that environment and to make sure we make Morecambe Bay, the most understood area that we possibly can. So people feel they can really connect and most importantly care about Morecambe Bay. The second element of transformation that we always love is of course economic. And those you may or may not know, but since Eden Project, in our near 20 years of operation in Cornwall, and particularly a business-minded community, we've been able to generate nearly £2 billion of growth and economic investment in the region. That is huge, and all the jobs that flow from that over 20 years. So that's another part, and I can go into the supply chain maybe in some questions as well, because that means people can be optimistic about investment, they can be optimistic and confident in terms of what that means to their businesses. And the third one, of course, is that sense of social transformation, which is about the connection with each other. And it's wonderful to see so many people here today, so many families and kids. Keep being noisy in the back because I don't really mind, so keep doing it. Is to connect with each other, because without community, you have nothing. You have nothing. If people treated community like their mobile phone, and when it broke, I've got to fix it, I need it. Well, if your community's broken, fix it. Do something about it. Don't just stand by and say, well, our community's not what we want it to be. So again, social cohesion and that social transformation is something we absolutely love. And Morecambe has already got a wonderful community, and we cannot wait to be part of that community with you and to help with just making sure whatever the future holds, we're doing it together as a community of people. So that's why Morecambe. I hope that's where it is for us. So the next thing I was going to go to really is some of the themes. And I'm really, really pleased today to be able to, often when myself or others have been speaking, we often talk about the design. And I'm really pleased enough to bring these slides because these things have been up here for quite a long time now. And hopefully people are aware that the design we have, what's it going to look like? Yeah, can we have the design? What's it going to look? That's it, and it's the mussel shells, because Morecambe's rooted in that kind of the various crustaceans and how you can see things in the bay and it connects. But people also want to know what's it going to feel like. And what we're moving to now is not what it's going to look like, but what it's going to feel like. So I'm going to keep the teaser for just a bit longer because I can tell you some more about that. And you are the first people to know some of the stuff that's going to go in the project. So we're really excited about this. But the main themes, just to make sure everyone's aware, you can't be in Morecambe and not get this sense of rhythm. Yes, there's the rhythm of the tides. And of course, it was said when we were chatting to people a couple of months ago that Morecambe Bay is being made by the moon. And you think about that for a while, you think, really? And it is. It's tidal, it's lunar, and it's the lunar cycles that have made Morecambe Bay the bay that it is, the wonder, the natural wonder that it is. But there's also the beautiful sunsets, and you can't stand on that seafront and look and gaze over the mirrored waters, looking over the Lake District, and you get this sense of these rhythms, these tides, the lunar cycle, the circadian rhythms. Morecambe again is rooted in rhythm. Many different natural rhythms, and all of us here are rooted in rhythms. Again, with my travelling, I know my rhythms aren't quite right now, and it really shows you when your rhythms are out of balance. You feel it, you know it, you don't feel good about those things, and bringing that sense of perception that if the rhythms of our planet are out of balance, you've got to do something about that. Bringing awareness to Morecambe Bay. Well, Morecambe Bay, you can see the rhythms every day, and that is a fundamental part of our project. And when we talk about health and well-being, there's nothing more important than the rhythms of our health. When you feel good, when you don't feel good. What makes you feel good? Why don't you feel good? And all those things we're going to bring to life in the project. So, if that's the premise for it, what's it going to be? I think I need a drum roll now, probably. So, I've talked about rhythms. We've talked about natural wonder, that sense of connection. We've talked about entertainment. And we've talked about health and well-being. And all of those things are aspects that Morecambe has had already. and we're going to bring it back. But we're going to bring it back in an incredibly exciting, immersive, and hopefully enjoyable way for people with the Eden Project. So, there are a number of things that will go into these structures, and by the way, these are concepts and they're continually being developed, so don't be surprised when these start modifying themselves over the next couple of months. But we're really excited to announce for the first time that we've got the fundamental parts now, and we've been spending a number of months working through exactly the content. We're not going to give it all out, and you wouldn't expect us to, because you've got to keep some secrets from people. But effectively, the fundamental parts of Eden Project North are going to be around the themes of recreating this 21st century seaside resort and reimagining that. But it is fundamentally about the rhythms of the bay, the connection of the bay, and making sure the health and well-being elements are absolutely rooted in the site. And, you'd expect me to say it, we're going to make sure you have the most wonderful day you possibly can through entertainment. So, when you arrive, the first thing you do, you're going to come into the Bay Hall. And if any of you have been to look at some of the big grand foyers of things like the Tate Modern, when you come into the Tate Modern, you see this big open space. We're going to create the best arrival point you can imagine. We're going to make sure when people arrive, the threshold of arrival says, I have arrived at Eden Project North, I've arrived at this place. And we're going to make sure this is a way to sensitise you to those issues, to sensitise you to the wonder that is the bay. So you're going to start seeing exhibits, you're going to start being connected with some of the immersive experiences, but most of all, you're going to come in and say, wow, this place just feels amazing. This place just feels like a place I want to spend some time. And from there, the main component, we're going to start going into what we can call from the Bay Hall, we're then going to go into what we hope is going to be one of the most immersive elements of it, which is the above the bay. So this again connects the place of a really abundant space. It's a space that's probably the space that's most akin to our place in Cornwall. This is going to be filled with light, it's going to be filled with plants, and Eden Project's known for its horticulture. So above the bay is going to talk about all the stories that are linked to the solar cycles, the circadian rhythms, the sun. And this is going to be the biggest expanse. It's voluminous, it's large, it's going to be multi-level, it's going to be multi-sensory. And when you walk into this space, again, it's going to be a space that's going to feel exquisite, it's going to feel calming, and it's going to make you feel open to some of those stories that we want to tell about things that happen above the bay. But if we're going above the bay, we're going below the bay. And that's the next one. And this is probably the most exciting part of the project, where we'll be taking ourselves to places we've never worked before, and we really want to do it in Morecambe, which is, it's going to be an immersive theatre. And with that, we're going to start bringing in new technologies to take people into spaces that they haven't been before. It's theatrical, and it's deliberately theatrical to make sure that we can connect with those stories that people may not be aware of. For example, what happens when the intertidal areas, what happens when the bay changes. That's below the bay, and that place is inspired by the moon. And this is another amazing departure for us, and we're incredibly excited about it. We've got above the bay, we've got below the bay, and then we've got the natural sanctuary. So if it's a project inspired totally by health and well-being, but we want to make sure that people feel utterly connected to the essential elements of life that make you feel good. So this is a sanctuary where you can feel the healing benefits of nature. And for those of you who aspire to this sense of the blue gym, the green gym, that sense of, we all know that when you get into the ocean, there's a reason people feel better when they're near the sea. It's because of the effects of the ocean. And so, as I put my teeth in, think thalassotherapy, think treatments, think a way of feeling good by being connected to the blue environment, but likewise think calmness, think tranquility, think that when you're in a wooded space, a green space, how you feel, and we're going to bring those to life. And people will be able to sense those spaces, but also they'll be able to book and take some treatments in those spaces as well, ways to make them feel better. And I'm really pleased that we've got Lancaster University here today as well, because the other part of the site that's really important to us is the Natural Observatory. The Natural Observatory is another key component of the scheme, which is our research space, our science space, our serious doing space as a living laboratory. And when we're looking at things that are going to help this planet become more healthy, we're going to bring serious science to bear, but make sure that isn't just something that's held in a back room. It's a means of education. It is absolutely linked to Eden Project Learning and the offer through education. And so we're connecting people with learning, education, science, citizen science, how you're all contributing to some of those things. So we're really, really excited about that too. And then the final part of the scheme is what we can call these satellites. which are these elements that can be peppered along the promenade, because we're working really closely with Lancaster City Council to transform the public realm, not only as part of Eden Project North, but potentially as part of future high streets as well. And we really want to make sure that in all parts along the public realm, along the bay and along the promenade, there are areas where you can dwell, you can stop, you can reflect, you can look, you can bring people together. There's a number of parts to that, and one we're really excited about is the bay landing. And the bay landing for us is going to be an area where hopefully, this is one we've got to really work through, where we can start taking people out onto the bay, not fearful of the bay, respectful of the bay, and start working with those people locally that can make that happen. Because if you're going to understand the bay, wouldn't it be great to get people out onto it? How we do that? We're really excited about that, and we can't wait to develop that further. The business part of this, and we know there's lots of people, again, with the Expo, that are saying, how can we get involved? So there's a couple of things I just wanted to mention to people, which is, first of all, getting involved as a volunteer, because Eden Project has a huge history in volunteering, and our volunteers are absolutely vital for what we do, and we'll be looking forward to hopefully to working with a number of people to start that volunteering network in Morecambe, which for us is fundamental to how we can try and do things. The second one then is as a supplier. And as I've been chatting to people and dragged sideways to chat to others, they say, well, how can we become a supplier? Well, the first thing really is tell us you want to become a supplier. And I'm really pleased that the Chamber actually, I'm just looking at going to start working with us to say, if you want to become a supplier, we can start working with the Chamber. That's not the only way, of course, but it's a great place to start. And it goes without saying, but if you wish to work with Eden Project and we wish to work with you, you've got to have amazing products. We always seek to bring the best products we can to our visitors. And that ideally should be within a supply chain that's pretty close, because that's the most sustainable thing you can do. And we're really, really proud that 80% of our supply chain comes from Devon and Cornwall. And let's just think about that for a moment. We're trying to make that even more if we can in Cumbria and Lancashire, and there's no reason why we can't. But it comes from amazing products, amazing businesses, and a supply chain that respects the fact we all have to live within a sustainable ecosystem. And the most important thing any business that can do to work with Eden Project is to really look at your products and take it right back to the very first essence of its provenance. Where does it come from? Where's it made from? Why is it made that way? And if you can ensure that that whole supply chain is in balance, that's a great place to start. But likewise, we know that for a lot of people, that's not easy to do. That's actually quite difficult. So we don't want to work, we also want to work with those companies that are there already. That's a great place. But likewise, if you have an aspiration to become one of those companies, to be one of those suppliers, then again, please engage with us, because part of Eden Project's transformation economically is to make sure sustainable businesses are the businesses that thrive, because this planet needs more sustainable businesses. We need more businesses that are ethical, that really think about their supply chains. And more importantly, we need more businesses that are local, that connect with the communities, and through business and community we create this really strong fabric around some projects that are catalytic. And I guess that's what I'd like to finish on, is if Eden's an attitude, Eden's also a means of saying we can be better, because the future is yet to be made, and the future is ours, the future is yours. It's not Eden Project, we've done a Cornwall Eden Project, I've just come from Qingdao, they've got their own vision for their project. Be inspired to think of your vision for your project, for your business, for your community. This isn't Eden Project in Morecambe, it's Eden Project with Morecambe. I'm really happy to take some questions. The final one before I finish is that we mentioned that the motto for Morecambe was beauty surrounds and health abounds. The final thing I'd just like to share with you is the one thing we are going to add, and we really want to add for Morecambe, is beauty surrounds, health abounds, and nature astounds, because that for us is what this place means. It's an incredible place, and we're really happy to be working with you. Thank you all so much.